Cal Brennan stood at his mother's grave on a Monday morning with nothing but 12 degrees of Montana cold and the sound of frozen dirt hitting pine. By Wednesday, his wife had left her wedding ring on the breakfast table beside the divorce papers. By Friday, his best friend Wade Pritchard showed up with 47 pages of loan documents and a handshake that smelled like expensive cologne, and something else Cal couldn't name yet. He signed every page without reading. Grief does that to a man, makes him grateful for help, even when the help comes with teeth. Sunday, at the Methodist Church, Diane sat in the back row with Wade. Their hands touched during the closing hymn. The whole town watched. Cal's foreman, T-Bone, leaned close and whispered, "Boss, something ain't right." That night, Cal stood in his mother's bedroom, staring at the old leather tube in her bedroom safe. She'd told him about it once, years back. He figured it held family photos, maybe some old ranch documents. He closed the safe without touching it. The bank clerk stamped Wade's papers the next morning. "You're all set, Mr. Brennan." Cal looked down at his weathered hands. "What did I just sign?" 3 weeks earlier, Cal had woken at 4:30 in the morning like he'd done for 40 years. His mother was dying in the living room. They'd moved the hospital bed in there so she could see the sunrise through the east windows. But the cattle still needed checking. Routine keeps a man sane when everything else is falling apart. The diesel engine in his old Ford didn't want to turn over. 15 below, and the metal fought him. When it finally caught, the rumble sounded like relief. He drove the fence line in darkness, headlights catching the vapor from 200 head of Angus. Their breath hung in the air like small ghosts. Everything was ice and stillness. He counted by sections, checking water tanks, looking for anything down or distressed. Found a heifer, with a limp. Nothing serious, probably stepped in a frozen rut, and made a note to have T-Bone check her later. When he got back to the ranch house, the sky was starting to gray. Wood smoke rose from the chimney. Someone had kept the fire going. He found his mother alone. Diane's door, the guest room door now, though they hadn't discussed when that happened, was closed. Cal pulled a chair beside the hospital bed and took his mother's hand. It felt like paper. "Did the check," he said quietly. Her eyes opened, still sharp even now. "The heifers?" 183's got a limp. T-Bone will look at her. She smiled. That small smile that meant she was proud of him, even if she'd never say it straight out. Her generation didn't. "Calvin," her voice was barely there. "The tube, in the safe." "I know, Mom. The leather one. I'll take care of it." "Not pictures." She squeezed his hand with what little strength she had left. "Water is power, Calvin. Remember that." He didn't understand, but he nodded. The hospice nurse had said she might get confused near the end. "Where's Diane?" his mother asked. Cal looked at the closed guest room door. "Sleeping." His mother's jaw tightened. Even dying, she could read a room better than anyone he'd ever known. "She's afraid." "Of what?" "What comes after?" His mother closed her eyes. "Some people love you. Some people love what you can do for them. Took me 60 years to learn the difference." She died that afternoon. While Cal was in the barn, greasing the baler, Diane called his cell phone. Her voice was flat. "Cal, you need to come in. Need." The Methodist Church held 400 people, and every seat was full. Margaret Rose Brennan had lived in Copper Ridge for 63 years. She'd been a nurse at the county hospital, delivered half the babies in town, and sat with families during their worst moments. People remembered. Cal sat in the front pew in his only suit, the same one he'd worn to his own wedding 16 years back. The wool smelled like mothballs in the cedar chest where it lived between funerals. Diane sat beside him, but there was space between them. She'd cried during the service, but her eyes were dry now. She'd removed her wedding ring. He'd noticed that morning, but hadn't said anything. What was there to say? Wade Pritchard sat 3 rows back with the other local business owners. He caught Cal's eye and nodded, solemn and respectful. They'd known each other since college. Wade had been in the room when Cal proposed to Diane. He'd been Cal's best man. Frank Holloway, the retired county judge, sat in the back. Cal saw him watching everything with those careful eyes that missed nothing. Doc Martha Keene sat with her husband. She'd taken care of the Brennan ranch animals for 30 years. After the service, she squeezed Cal's arm. "Your mother was a pillar, Cal, and you did right by her these last 2 years." "Thank you, Martha." She lowered her voice. "Drought conditions are getting worse. Water tables dropping. County's talking about usage restrictions." Cal nodded. Everyone in cattle country worried about water. At the graveside, the wind cut through everything, 12 degrees and dropping. The sun was already going down. Winter days were short and mean. The pastor said the words. They lowered the casket. Cal threw frozen dirt onto the pine lid and heard it rattle. Wade appeared at his shoulder. His hand was heavy, proprietary. His cologne cut through the cold air, something expensive and sharp. "Anything you need, brother," Wade said. "Anything at all." Cal looked at him. Wade's smile was perfect. Too perfect. Like he'd practiced it. "I appreciate that, Wade." Behind them, Cal heard Diane's heels on the frozen ground. She was walking toward Wade's truck, not Cal's. Wednesday morning, Cal made coffee in the empty kitchen. The pot gurgled and hissed. Outside, the thermometer read 8 degrees. He'd already done the cattle check. 4:30, like always. T-Bone had the heifer separated and was watching her limp. Diane came down the stairs carrying a manila envelope. She'd done her makeup. That was the first thing Cal noticed. She never wore makeup on a weekday morning. She set the envelope on the pine table between them. Her left hand was bare. "I can't do this anymore, Cal." He looked at the envelope, then at her hand, then at her face. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Do what?" "This. Us. I've been dying inside for years." She said it like she'd practiced. Maybe she had. "I need security. I need a future. I need someone who can provide those things." Cal's coffee sat untouched, steam rising into the cold air of the kitchen. The furnace kicked on with a metal clank. "I've provided for 16 years, Diane." "You've survived for 16 years. There's a difference." Her voice had an edge now, something that sounded like impatience. "This ranch is barely breaking even. The equipment dealership is one bad quarter from closing. Your mother's medical bills are paid." "With what? You maxed out every credit card we have." He didn't argue. It was true. She pushed the envelope toward him. "I already signed. I'm not asking for much. Just what's fair." "When did you decide this?" She looked away. "Does it matter?" "It does to me. I'm moving out today. I've already packed." She stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. "Wade's helping me find a place. He's been very kind." Something cold settled in Cal's chest, colder than the morning air. "Wade. He's a good friend, Cal, to both of us." "Is he?" She picked up her purse from the counter. "Sign the papers. Mail them to the address inside. It'll be easier if we don't drag this out." She walked out. The front door closed. Through the window, Cal watched Wade's silver Mercedes pull up. Diane got in. They drove away. The wedding ring sat on the table beside the envelope. She'd placed it there before coming downstairs. Planned that, too. Cal picked it up. The small diamond caught the weak winter light. He'd saved 6 months to buy it, back when saving 6 months meant something. Friday afternoon, Wade showed up at the ranch house. This time he came alone. "Hell of a week," Wade said, stomping snow off his boots on the porch. "Can I come in?" Cal stepped aside. They sat in the living room where his mother's hospital bed had been. Someone, T-Bone probably, had already moved it out. The space looked wrong, empty. Wade pulled a folder from his briefcase. Leather, expensive, the kind that smelled like new money. "Listen, I know things are tight right now. Medical bills, the funeral, and now—" He gestured vaguely. "Diane told me about the equipment loans coming due, and property taxes in March. I'll handle it." "I know you will, but you don't have to handle it alone." Wade opened the folder. "I talked to Glenn Voss at the bank. We can restructure everything. 6-month extension on the equipment loans, 0 interest. Brother to brother, Cal, no strings." Cal looked at the papers. 47 pages, dense legal text. His eyes were tired. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours since the funeral. "Why would you do this?" Wade leaned back. "Because we're friends. Because I know you'd do the same for me. And because—" He paused. "Because your mom was good to me when I was starting out. She believed in people. This is me paying that forward." The furnace kicked on again. The house creaked in the cold. "I appreciate it, Wade. More than I can say." "Then let's get this done. I've got everything flagged where you need to sign." Wade pulled out a pen. "Glenn's expecting us at the bank in 20 minutes. The Copper Ridge Bank and Trust had marble floors that echoed when you walked. The building smelled like old paper and carpet cleaner. Cal had been coming here since he was a boy, depositing birthday checks from his grandparents. Wade guided him to Glenn's office, but Glenn wasn't there. A younger woman sat at the desk instead, pretty, mid-30s, wearing perfume that was too sweet for the small office. "Mr. Voss had an emergency," she said. "I'm Julie Stanton. I can process the paperwork for you." Wade smiled at her, the smile that was a little too practiced. "Julie and I go way back. She'll take good care of you, Cal. Cal signed where Wade pointed, page after page, his hand cramped. The pen clicked with each signature. Julie stamped each page with a heavy metal stamper that made a satisfying thunk. All set, she said. We'll process these today. You'll get confirmation by mail. That was easy, Cal said. Wade clapped him on the shoulder. That's what friends are for. They walked out together. The cold hit them like a wall when they stepped onto Main Street. Wade headed toward his Mercedes. Cal watched him in the bank's window reflection. Wade's smile disappeared the moment he thought Cal couldn't see him. He pulled out his phone and typed something fast, his expression tight with concentration, satisfied. Then he caught Cal's reflection watching him. The smile snapped back into place. He waved and drove away. Cal stood on the frozen sidewalk, staring at his weathered hands. They were shaking, not from cold. Thursday morning, Cal found Frank Holloway sitting in his usual booth at the Silver Dollar Diner. 7 o'clock, like clockwork. Frank had been retired from the bench for 5 years, but he still kept the schedule of a working man. The diner smelled like bacon grease and burned coffee. The kind of coffee that had been sitting on the burner since 5 a.m. Cal poured himself a cup from the counter and was heading to a table in back when Frank waved him over. Cal, sit. It wasn't a request. Frank had that voice, spent 30 years on the bench, and it never left him. Cal slid into the booth. The vinyl was cracked and patched with duct tape. Through the window, Main Street looked gray and mean under low clouds. How you holding up? Frank asked. Getting by? Frank studied him over the rim of his coffee cup. His eyes were pale blue, sharp as December ice. Your mother was a remarkable woman. She was. Knew her 40 years, watched you grow up, watched you take over the ranch when your father... Frank paused. Well, that was a hard time. Cal's father had put a rifle in his mouth in 1988 after the drought broke him. Cal had been 25. He didn't like talking about it. I heard you signed some papers with Wade Pritchard, Frank said. The shift in conversation was abrupt, intentional. Cal looked up. Loan restructuring. He's helping me with the equipment payments. That's so. Frank's expression didn't change. You read them papers? Wade walked me through it. I asked if you read them. Cal felt something tighten in his chest. Most of it. Most. Frank set down his cup. The ceramic clicked against the table. Cal, you know what's happening around this county? Water rights disputes are up 40%. Developers buying up property left and right, fighting over creek access, underground aquifers, irrigation permits. I've heard some talk. It's more than talk. State's got 3 major cases pending, millions of dollars at stake. Frank leaned forward. Your ranch sits on Copper Creek. You know what that's worth? It's worth keeping my cattle alive? It's worth a hell of a lot more than that to certain people. Frank pulled a folded newspaper from his coat pocket, opened it to the legal notices section. His finger tapped a small paragraph. Wade Pritchard Development LLC filed for permits on a 250-unit subdivision, up on the eastern bench. You know where their water's coming from. Cal looked at the notice. The words blurred together. I don't know. You should find out. Frank refolded the paper. Your mother and I talked about certain contingencies. She was a careful woman, Cal. Careful and smart. Smarter than most people knew. What kind of contingencies? Frank finished his coffee, stood up, dropped a $5 bill on the table. The kind that require patience and trust. He put on his hat. You still got that safe of your mother's? Yeah. Might want to look through it, careful like. Frank headed toward the door, then stopped. And Cal, next time someone hands you 47 pages of paper, you read every goddamn word, even the small print. The door chimed when he left. Cold air rushed in, then out. Cal sat alone in the booth, staring at the legal notice. The coffee in his cup had gone cold. 2 weeks later, at 11:30 at night, T-Bone pounded on Cal's door. Boss, we got a breach. Cal was dressed and out the door in 90 seconds. The night was brutally cold, near zero, and clear. Stars overhead looked close enough to touch. His breath came out in white clouds. They drove to the south pasture in T-Bone's truck. The heater rattled but barely worked. Cal could see his breath inside the cab. Heifer 207, T-Bone said. She's been trying for an hour, can't do it alone. They found her in the calving shed, down on her side, breathing hard. Steam rose from her body into the frozen air. The smell was blood and amniotic fluid and fear. Cal knelt in the straw beside her, pulled off his gloves. His hands would be raw by the time this was done, but gloves were useless for this work. He needed to feel everything. Breech, he confirmed. Back legs first. Can you turn it? I can try. The work was hard and intimate and old as ranching itself. The heifer groaned. Cal talked to her in a low, steady voice while his hands worked inside her, finding the calf's legs, the tiny hooves, trying to rotate, to give the calf a chance. T-Bone held the flashlight and handed Cal what he needed: iodine, towels. Neither man spoke except when necessary. They'd done this together for 30 years. At 12:40, the calf came. Back legs first, then the body, then finally the head. Cal pulled it clear and wiped its nose and mouth. The calf shuddered and took its first breath. There you go, Cal said softly. There you go. The heifer stood up slowly, exhausted. She turned to smell her calf, and something shifted in her. That deep animal knowledge. She began to lick it clean. T-Bone grinned. Hell of a thing, ain't it? Every damn time. They walked back to the truck together. The cold felt clean now, sharp but good, the kind of cold that reminds you you're alive. Boss, T-Bone said as they drove toward the house. Ranch don't quit, and neither do we. Cal looked at his foreman. I know, T. I mean it. Whatever you're going through with Diane, whatever Wade's got going on, we're still here. The work's still here. I appreciate that. They pulled up to the ranch house. T-Bone's headlights swept across the south fence line, down by where Copper Creek ran through the property. Cal saw them in the beam, 3 wooden stakes with small orange flags. Hold on, he said. They got out, walked down to the creek. The stakes were new, driven deep into the frozen ground. Each one had lettering burned into the wood. WP Development. What the hell? T-Bone said. Cal pulled one up. The earth fought him, but finally released it. The stake came free with a crack. Wade's company, Cal said quietly. On your property? Cal looked at the other 2 stakes, then at the dark line of Copper Creek running through his land like it had for 135 years. Yeah, he said. On my property. February came in mean, the kind of cold that settled into your bones and wouldn't leave. Cal was at his desk in the ranch office when Wade called. Cal, hey, listen, I've been thinking about your property taxes. They're due March 15th, right? Cal looked at the stack of bills on his desk. He'd been avoiding them. That's right. What's the damage? 20,000? 18.5. Wade's voice was smooth, concerned, like oil on water. That's tight, especially with the equipment payments coming up in April. What if we consolidated everything? 1 loan, 1 payment, better terms. I could have Glenn set it up, take some pressure off. Cal rubbed his eyes. He hadn't slept well in weeks. I don't know, Wade. Think about it. No rush. But March 15th is only 6 weeks out. A pause. You're not alone in this, brother. After Wade hung up, Cal sat in the silence. The office smelled like old paper and diesel fuel from his work clothes. The furnace ticked, struggling to keep up with the cold. Someone knocked. Doc Martha Keene didn't wait for an answer. She walked in carrying a rolled-up paper under her arm. Cal? She nodded. Her voice was rough from 40 years of Montana winters and not suffering fools. We need to talk. She unrolled the paper on his desk. It was a county plat map, the kind that showed every property line and owner in sections. She'd marked certain parcels in red. You see this? Her finger traced the properties around Cal's ranch. Wade Pritchard bought the Henderson place in November, 2 sections, then the old Murphy Ranch in December, 3 sections. January, he picked up the Kowalski property at auction, 4 sections. Cal leaned forward. The red marks formed a pattern. They surrounded his ranch on 3 sides. He's buying everything around you, Martha said. Every property that comes available, he takes it. You see what he's doing? Cal's mouth went dry. He's boxing me in. He's doing more than that. Look at the creek. Her finger followed the blue line of Copper Creek. It ran through Cal's property, then continued east through all the parcels Wade had purchased. Your ranch sits at the headwaters. Everything downstream depends on what happens on your land. Water rights, Cal said quietly. Water rights. Martha rolled up the map. Cal, you're being circled like a wounded calf. Wake up. She left him sitting there, staring at the space where the map had been. Valentine's Day fell on a Tuesday. Cal was at the feed store picking up mineral supplements when he heard the laughter. 3 men stood by the counter looking at a phone. One of them was Ray Hendricks, who ran the hardware store. When he saw Cal, his face went red. Cal, hey. Ray. Cal set the mineral bags on the counter. The smell of molasses and grain dust was thick in the air. Ray pocketed his phone too quickly. Just, you know, social media stuff. But Cal had already seen the screen. A photo. Diane on a white sand beach, turquoise water behind her, Wade beside her, his arm around her shoulders, both of them holding drinks with little umbrellas. The caption was visible for just a second. Paradise, with my love. New beginnings. Caribbean. Blessed, Cal paid for the minerals. His hands were steady. He walked out. Behind him, the conversation started up again, quieter now, but not quiet enough. The equipment dealership was on his way home. He stopped in to check on an order. The receptionist looked nervous when she saw him. Mr. Brennan, the crew was asking, there's been some talk about layoffs? What talk? Wade Pritchard hasn't paid his account in 4 months. That's $47,000. And if he doesn't pay... She looked at the shop floor where 12 men worked on tractors and combines. Mr. Brennan, can we make payroll next month? Cal looked at the books she showed him. The numbers didn't lie. Wade's account was the biggest on the receivables list. Without it, they were $30,000 short. I'll figure something out, he said. But driving home, he did the math. Property taxes, equipment loans, operating costs, payroll. The ranch was barely breaking even. The dealership was bleeding. And Wade was in the Caribbean with Cal's ex-wife, posting photos for the whole county to see. His phone rang. Glenn Voss. Cal, I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy, Glenn. I need you to come in, tomorrow. It's about those papers you signed. Glenn's voice was tight. The restructuring papers. Cal, there's some language in there that's... concerning. What kind of language? The kind we need to discuss in person, not over the phone. A pause. And Cal, bring a lawyer. Cal pulled into his driveway. The ranch house looked empty. No smoke from the chimney. He'd let the fire go out. T-Bone's truck was parked by the barn. Through the shop window, Cal could see him working under a tractor, the fluorescent lights harsh and cold. The sun was setting behind the western ridge. The temperature was dropping fast. Tonight would hit 0 again. Cal sat in his truck with the engine running, heat blowing weakly. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. But when he opened it, he saw the photo again. Diane and Wade. Paradise. New beginnings. Someone had sent it to him directly, making sure he saw it. His hands gripped the steering wheel. The leather was cracked and worn smooth by 40 years of ranch work. Through the shop window, T-Bone slid out from under the tractor, saw Cal sitting there, waved, concerned. Cal waved back. Then he looked at his phone again. The photo, the blessed hashtag, the whole county laughing in the feed store. Glenn's words echoed. Bring a lawyer, Frank's words from weeks ago. Next time someone hands you 47 pages, you read every goddamn word. Wade's survey stakes down by the creek, the properties circling his ranch like a noose, the money he didn't have, the payroll he couldn't make, the taxes coming due, and somewhere in those 47 pages he'd signed, something was waiting to destroy him. That night, T-Bone came to the house. Cal was sitting in the dark living room, no fire, just the cold pressing in from all sides. Boss? T-Bone stood in the doorway. I heard some things in town. I imagine you did. T-Bone came in without being asked, sat down in the chair across from Cal. The springs creaked under his weight. He was a big man, 65 years old, hands like hammers from 30 years of ranch work. That picture Diane posted, T-Bone said. And Wade, the way he's been acting. He leaned forward. Just say the word, boss. I know some boys who could have a conversation with him, the kind of conversation that adjusts a man's perspective. Cal looked at his foreman. T-Bone meant it. He would do it tonight if Cal asked. No, Cal said. Boss, that's not who we are, T. Cal stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the mercury light over the barn cast everything in cold blue. My father lost himself when things got hard. Lost his faith in everything, including himself. I won't do that. I won't become something I'm not just because people expect me to. Wade's taking advantage. While you're grieving, I know what he's doing. Cal turned back. And we'll handle it, but we'll handle it right. T-Bone was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Yes, sir. After he left, Cal stood in the empty living room. The house creaked and settled in the cold. He needed to start a fire, but he couldn't seem to move. Instead, he climbed the stairs to his mother's bedroom. He hadn't been in here since the funeral. Diane had used it for storage, boxes of things she was going to take but never got around to. Now even those were gone. Just the empty dresser, the bed with its quilted cover, and the small safe in the closet. Cal opened the safe. He knew the combination, his birthday. Inside was what he expected: his birth certificate, his parents' marriage license, the deed to the ranch, dated 1889, signed by his great-grandfather, and the leather tube his mother had mentioned. He picked it up. It was old, the leather cracked and worn soft, probably held some surveyor's maps from when the ranch was first established, historical documents, nothing that would help him now. He set it aside and was about to close the safe when he saw the Bible. It was his mother's Bible, the one she'd read every morning with her coffee. The leather cover was worn smooth by her hands. He opened it carefully. A bookmark, heavy paper, old. He pulled it out and saw where it had been placed. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. The verse was underlined in pencil. His mother's handwriting. Cal sat on the edge of the bed, the Bible in his hands. The room smelled like her lavender soap, fading now. In another month it would be gone completely. Behind the bookmark was something else. A small brass key on a chain, the kind that opened a safe deposit box. He held it up to the light. No markings, just the key. His mother's words from that last morning. The tube. In the safe. Water's power. She hadn't been confused. She'd been trying to tell him something. He looked at the key, then at the leather tube, then at the underlined verse. An inheritance to his children's children. Friday morning, Cal found Frank at the diner again. 7 o'clock. The breakfast crowd was starting to thin out. The smell of eggs and hash browns hung in the air, mixing with burned coffee. Frank looked up from his newspaper. Cal. Frank, mind if I sit? Free country. Cal slid into the booth. A waitress brought him coffee without asking. That's how small towns worked. Everyone knew your order. I've been thinking about what you said, Cal started. About reading papers careful. About water rights. Frank folded his newspaper. Have you now? My mother left some things in her safe. I'm trying to figure out what they mean. What kind of things? Documents. And a key. Cal pulled it from his pocket, set it on the table. Safe deposit box key. Frank looked at it but didn't touch it. His expression didn't change. That's so. You said she talked to you about contingencies, about being careful. Cal leaned forward. Frank, I need to know. What did my mother tell you? Attorney-client privilege, Frank said, even after death. She wasn't your client. She was a nurse. Frank picked up his coffee cup, took a slow sip. Safe deposit boxes can hold surprises. I represented a man once, thought his father died broke, opened the box and found out the old man had been buying gold coins for 40 years, $200,000 in American Eagles, sitting there in a little metal box. Cal waited. Another time, Frank continued, had a client whose mother kept a whole other life in a safe deposit box. Property deeds, investment records. Turned out she'd been buying real estate under a different name for 30 years. The daughter thought she was poor, found out she owned half of downtown Billings. Why are you telling me this? Because sometimes people keep secrets for good reasons. Sometimes they're protecting someone, testing them, waiting to see what kind of person they become without money influencing their choices. Frank finished his coffee. Your mother was the smartest investor I ever knew, Cal, and I've known a few. The phrase hung in the air. I ever knew. Like he'd worked with her professionally, like he'd seen her financial acumen up close. Cal stared at him. You were her attorney. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Frank stood up, put on his coat. That key in your pocket? I'd use it, sooner rather than later. Wade Pritchard filed some paperwork at the courthouse yesterday. Time-sensitive paperwork, the kind that has deadlines. What kind of paperwork? The kind you'll want to know about before those deadlines pass. Frank dropped money on the table. And Cal, when you go to that bank, read everything, take your time, and maybe bring someone you trust. He walked out. The door chimed. Cold air rushed in. Cal sat alone, with the key in his hand and his mother's words echoing in his head. Water is power. Outside, the sky was gray. March was a week away. The temperature had climbed to 15 degrees. Not warm, but warmer. The snow was starting to look dirty at the edges. Mud season was coming. Change was coming. Cal put the key back in his pocket and left money for the coffee he hadn't touched. That afternoon, he stood in the barn office, sorting through his mother's personal papers, bills marked paid, medical records, Old Christmas cards saved in a box, and a ledger. Small, leather-bound, his mother's precise handwriting filling every line. The entries didn't make sense. Copper Creek Holdings, Annual Review. Mineral Rights, Section 14, renewed. Water Board, Annual Registration Fee paid. His mother had been a nurse. She shouldn't have entries about mineral rights and water boards. He flipped through the pages, dates going back 30 years, property addresses he didn't recognize, dollar amounts that seemed impossible. T-Bone knocked on the doorframe. "Boss, that heifer's doing good. Calf's strong." "That's good, T. You all right?" Cal looked at the ledger, then at the safe deposit key on the desk. "I'm not sure." T-Bone came in, looked at what Cal was reading. "What's that?" "I think it's my mother's secret life." They stood there together in the small office, heat from the diesel stove barely keeping the cold at bay. Outside, the wind picked up, but it didn't have the same vicious edge it had carried all winter. Something was shifting. In the weather, in the county, in Cal's understanding of who his mother had been and what she'd left behind. "You going to open that safe deposit box?" T-Bone asked. Cal picked up the key, felt its weight. "Monday morning," he said. "First thing." Monday morning, the bank opened at 9. Cal was waiting on the marble steps at 8:55. The air had changed. Still cold, but different. 32 degrees. The snow along Main Street had turned to slush. Water dripped from awnings. The sound of melt was everywhere. March was 3 days away. Glenn Voss unlocked the door himself, saw Cal, and stopped. "Cal, I've been trying to reach you all weekend." "I know. I'm here about a safe deposit box." Glenn's expression shifted, something like relief, or maybe concern. "Come in." The bank smelled the same as it always had. Old paper, carpet cleaner, the faint metallic scent of money that had passed through too many hands. Their footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Glenn led him to the vault room. The door was massive, circular, like something from an old movie. He spun the wheel and pulled. The hinges made a deep groan. Inside were rows of metal boxes, floor to ceiling, small ones at the top, larger ones at the bottom. "Box number?" Glenn asked. Cal looked at the key. The number was stamped on it. 317. Glenn checked his records. His finger stopped on a line. He looked up at Cal, and something in his face had changed. "Your mother opened this box in 1985. She's accessed it regularly. Last time was..." He checked again. 6 months ago. When she could still walk, before the cancer got bad. The box was one of the large ones, bottom row. Glenn used his master key with Cal's key. The lock clicked. He pulled out a long metal drawer and set it on the table in the center of the room. "Take your time," Glenn said. "I'll be outside if you need anything." Cal stood alone in the vault room. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air was cool and still. He opened the drawer. On top was an iPad in a protective case. Beneath it, folders. Beneath those, a leather tube, twin to the one in his mother's safe at home. And beneath everything, a wooden box, old and heavy. Cal picked up the iPad first. It was charged. His mother had thought of that detail, or someone had. A piece of tape on the back read, "Play me first." He pressed the button. The screen lit up. A video file already queued. His mother's face appeared. Thin from illness, but her eyes were sharp. She was sitting in this same room, he realized, the bank vault, probably 6 months ago. "Hi, baby," she said, and Cal's throat closed. He hadn't heard her voice since that last morning. The sound of it, strong, clear, loving, hit him like a physical thing. If you're watching this, it means 6 months have passed. It means you've had time to grieve, to adjust, to see who stayed and who left. She smiled, that knowing smile. "I hope I'm right about what I predicted. I usually am." Cal sat down in the metal chair. His hands were shaking. "You have $340 million now, Calvin. That's terrifying and wonderful and complicated. Money this size doesn't just affect your life. It tests everyone around you." She leaned forward, closer to the camera. "By now, Diana's left you. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I knew she would. I saw it in her eyes years ago, the way she measured love in tangible securities. She didn't love you. She loved the idea of you loving her. There's a difference." Cal's jaw clenched. "And Wade Pritchard has revealed himself too. I imagine he's been helping you, offering solutions, making you feel grateful." Her expression hardened. "He's been positioning for years, Calvin, buying properties, waiting for me to die, waiting for you to be vulnerable." She picked up papers, held them to the camera. "These are land patents from 1880, territorial grants signed by President Arthur. They give whoever holds them water rights to Copper Creek, all of it, from source to county line. Without these, Wade's development is worthless. High desert, nothing grows, nothing sells. Cal stood up, went to the drawer, found the leather tube, opened it with hands that wouldn't stay steady. Inside were rolled documents, yellowed with age but preserved. He unrolled them carefully on the table. The presidential seal was visible. The signatures in old ink, legal description of water rights, Copper Creek, all tributaries, all adjacent groundwater. His mother's voice continued from the iPad. The loan papers Wade had you sign, they tried to transfer these rights to him, but here's what he doesn't know. Water rights transfers require County Water Board approval. That process takes 60 days minimum, and the paperwork he filed has errors. Deliberate errors that I made sure would be there. Cal looked up at the screen. Frank Holloway has been my attorney for 40 years. He knows everything. Trust him, Calvin. He'll help you fight this, but you have to move fast. Wade's development permits expire May 1st. He's running out of time. That makes him desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. She sat back. Her expression softened. You're not poor, baby. You never were. But I needed you to build your character without money influencing your choices. You did. You chose compassion over profit. You chose sacrifice. You chose love, even when it cost you everything. The door to the vault opened. Cal turned. Frank Holloway stood there. Not surprised, not apologetic, just present. Wondered when you'd come, Frank said. Cal looked at him, then at the screen, then at the documents spread on the table. 40 years, Cal said. 40 years. Frank came into the room, closed the door behind him. Your mother was the smartest investor I ever worked with. Started with $500 in 1982, bought property when nobody wanted it, invested in companies before they were worth anything. She built an empire, and she did it in complete silence. Why didn't she tell me? Because she wanted to know who you'd become without it, and because she knew Wade Pritchard was circling. Had been for years. She needed you to face him as the man you were, not the man money would make you. Cal looked at the papers again. The land patents, the water rights, the power to give or withhold life in a drought-stricken county. The papers I signed, he said, the loan restructuring, are being challenged as we speak. I filed an injunction Friday afternoon. Wade's trying to record the water rights transfer at the courthouse, but the water board has to approve it first, and we're going to make sure they don't. On the iPad, his mother's video was ending. Build something meaningful, Calvin. Help people. And remember, they didn't betray you because you weren't enough. They betrayed you because they never were. The screen went dark. Cal stood in the vault room surrounded by his mother's secrets. Outside, he could hear the sound of water dripping, snow melting, March coming. Frank handed him a folder. Water board hearing is May 1st. We have 7 weeks to prepare. Wade doesn't know you have these patents. Doesn't know about the money. He thinks you're broken. I am broken. No, Frank said quietly. You're bereaved. There's a difference. And you're about to learn the difference between being broken and being dangerous. That afternoon, Frank spread papers across the table in his old office above the hardware store. The room smelled like leather and old law books. Rain pattered against the windows. Not snow anymore. Rain, cold and steady. Here's what we can do, Frank said. His finger traced down a legal pad filled with notes. Option 1. We sue Wade for fraud. That loan restructuring had concealed terms. Water rights transfer buried in legal language. We have grounds. We'd win. Cost him everything. Cal listened. Option 2. We buy out his creditors. I've done some digging. Wade owes $4.7 million across 6 different loans. Property payments mostly. He's overextended. We could purchase those loans, become his creditor, and squeeze him until he breaks. Frank flipped a page. Option 3. We go public. Tell everyone what he tried to do. Small town like this, reputation is everything. Wade would be finished in Copper Ridge, probably finished in Montana. Cal looked out the window. Main Street below was empty. The rain was keeping people inside. Mud season was here. Everything was gray and brown and wet. You said there were 3 options, Cal said. I said those were things we can do. I didn't say they're things we should do. Frank leaned back in his chair. It creaked. Your mother left you more than money, Cal. She left you a choice about what kind of man you'll be when you have power. Wade tried to steal everything. He did. He helped Diane leave me, probably encouraged it. Probably. He stood at my mother's grave and lied to my face. Frank was quiet for a moment. Yes, he did all that. Question is, What are you going to do about it? Before Cal could answer, someone knocked. Doc Martha came in without waiting. Her coat dripped rain on the floor. "Heard you were here," she said to Cal. She looked at the papers spread on the table. "Planning Wade's destruction, I see." "Planning a response," Frank corrected. Martha pulled up a chair, sat down heavy. "Cal, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen. I've known you since you were 6 years old, treated your first horse, sat with you when your father died, watched you care for your mother these last 2 years." She leaned forward. "Don't become what you're fighting. He deserves— I don't care what he deserves. I care about who you are." Her voice was rough, but not unkind. "You destroy Wade. Maybe he has it coming, but that poison, it stays in you. I've seen it happen. Good men who got their revenge and found out it didn't fill the hole they thought it would." Cal looked at his hands, rancher's hands, scarred and calloused and honest. "So what do I do? Let him walk away?" "I didn't say that either." Martha stood up. "There's a difference between justice and revenge. One restores balance. The other just spreads the damage around." She headed for the door. "You figure out which one you're after." After she left, Cal and Frank sat in silence. The rain drummed harder. Outside water ran in the gutters. Everything melting, everything changing. "There's a fourth option," Cal said finally. "I'm listening. We fight him legally. At the water board hearing, we deny the water rights transfer. Let his development fail on its own. No revenge, no destruction, just consequences." Frank studied him. "That's the harder path. Requires patience, discipline. Wade might come at you hard while we wait. Let him. He'll try to discredit you, turn people against you. People will believe what they believe." Frank smiled, slight but real. "Your mother would be proud." Over the next 3 weeks, they prepared. Frank drew up the legal challenge. Cal met with ranchers, men who'd known his family for generations, men who understood what water meant in this country. They sat in living rooms and at kitchen tables. Cal explained what Wade was trying to do, how he'd tried to take the water rights, how his development would drain Copper Creek for swimming pools and lawn sprinklers while the ranches downstream went dry. One by one, they agreed to testify, to tell the water board what water meant, what it had always meant. "My grandfather homesteaded with your great-grandfather," old Henry Paulson said. "His kitchen smelled like coffee and wood smoke. Copper Creek kept us alive through the drought of 31. In 88, and last year, Wade Pritchard wants to sell it to California dentists who'll use it to wash their cars." Cal wrote down their stories. Frank would turn them into testimony. Glenn Voss called on a Tuesday. "Cal, you need to know. Wade's been asking questions about your finances, about where you're getting money for legal fees." "What did you tell him?" "That it's none of his business, but he's suspicious and desperate. His permits expire in 6 weeks. He's running out of time." That night, Cal drove out to the cemetery. The ground was soft now. Mud instead of frozen earth. New grass was starting to show in patches. His mother's grave had a headstone now. Simple granite, her name, her dates, nothing else. He knelt in the wet grass and didn't care about the mud soaking through his jeans. "I could destroy him, Mom," he said quietly. "Frank showed me how. Buy his loans, ruin him, make him lose everything like he tried to make me lose everything." A meadowlark called from somewhere in the cottonwoods. First one he'd heard this year. "But that's not what you taught me. That's not who you raised me to be." He touched the cold granite. "So I'm going to do it your way. The hard way, the right way." He stood up. Mud clung to his boots. The sun was setting behind the western ridge, and for the first time in months, the sunset looked warm instead of cold. His phone buzzed. Text from Frank. Wade filed emergency injunction, moved the hearing up, May 1st, 9 a.m., courthouse. He's forcing the confrontation. Cal looked at his mother's grave one more time. Then he got in his truck and headed home. 7 weeks had become 5. Wade was desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. Cal just had to be ready when he did. May 1st arrived warm, 58 degrees by 8 in the morning, the kind of spring day that made you believe in second chances. The courthouse was packed. Every seat taken, people standing in back. The water board sat at a long table up front. 5 county residents who made decisions about irrigation permits and creek diversions and who got to use how much water when. Cal sat with Frank at a table on the left side. His mother's attorney, a man named Donald Keene, Martha's husband, sat beside them. 3 ranchers sat behind them in support. Wade sat on the right side with 2 lawyers from Billings. Expensive suits, briefcases that probably cost more than a good horse. Diane sat in the back row. She wouldn't meet Cal's eyes. The chairman called the hearing to order. His name was Robert Chen, and he'd been on the water board for 20 years. He wore a bolo tie and boots and looked like he'd rather be checking fence. We're here regarding application WR 2024-0847, Chen said. Chen. Wade Pritchard Development, LLC, requesting approval to transfer water rights from the Brennan Ranch to proposed development parcels. Mr. Pritchard, you want to start? Wade stood, confident, smooth. The cologne was there even across the room saw him. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is about progress, about bringing jobs and growth to Copper Ridge. My development will create 250 homes, construction jobs, service jobs, tax revenue for schools and roads. He gestured to his lawyers. We've prepared economic impact studies. The county stands to gain millions. One of the Billings lawyers distributed folders to the board members, glossy presentations, charts and graphs. The water rights transfer is routine, Wade continued. Mr. Brennan signed all necessary documents. This is simply administrative approval of what's already legally binding. He sat down, smiled at the board, at the crowd, at Cal. Chen looked at Frank. Mr. Holloway? Frank stood. He didn't have glossy folders, just a single leather portfolio that had probably been with him since his first year of practice. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this isn't about economics. It's about theft disguised as progress. He opened the portfolio. The documents Mr. Brennan signed were presented during a period of extreme grief. His mother had just died. His wife had just left him. Wade Pritchard, his supposed best friend, offered help, but buried on page 31 of 47 pages was a water rights transfer clause. Frank held up the loan documents, the relevant section highlighted. Mr. Brennan was never informed this clause existed. That's not a legal agreement, that's exploitation. One of Wade's lawyers stood. Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, this is slander. Mr. Brennan signed voluntarily. He signed, Frank said. But let me tell you what he signed away. Donald Keynes stood, placed a leather tube on the table. Cal recognized it. His mother's tube from the safe deposit box. These are the original land patents for Copper Creek, Keynes said. Territorial grants from 1880. They establish water rights that predate every other claim in this county. They belong to the Brennan family, have for 145 years. He unrolled the documents. Even from the audience, people could see the presidential seal. Without access to Copper Creek water, Keene continued, Mr. Pritchard's development is worthless desert. He knows this. That's why he's been buying every property around the Brennan Ranch for 3 years, encircling, positioning, waiting. He held up survey stakes, the orange flags still attached. These were found on Brennan property, driven into the ground without permission. Wade Pritchard development markings. This isn't routine business. This is a coordinated land grab. Murmurs in the crowd. Chen banged his gavel once. We have testimony, so Frank said, from ranchers whose families have used Copper Creek water for 4 generations. They'd like to speak. One by one, they came forward. Henry Paulson, Ray Hendricks, a woman named Sarah Tucker, whose family had ranched since 1902. They talked about drought years, about sharing water, about the unwritten rules that kept everyone alive, about what would happen if Copper Creek got diverted to swimming pools and golf courses while cattle died in the pastures. My grandfather had a saying, Henry Paulson said. His voice shook with age and conviction. Water runs where it's needed, not where money tells it to. We forget that. We're no better than the people who tried to steal this land from the Cheyenne. When he sat down, the room was quiet. Outside, a meadowlark sang. Through the tall courthouse windows, sun streamed in warm and yellow. Chen looked at his fellow board members. They leaned together, talking low. Finally, Chen straightened. We've heard enough. The board votes on whether to approve the water rights transfers requested by Wade Pritchard Development. He went down the line. Each member voted. Aye, nay, 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 aye. Chen cleared his throat. Motion fails, 4-3. Water rights transfer is denied. The room erupted. Wade's face went red, then white. His lawyers were already gathering papers, whispering urgently. Diane sat frozen in the back row. Cal felt Frank's hand on his shoulder, steady, proud. Outside in the hallway, Wade cornered Cal. His cologne was rancid now, mixed with sweat and desperation. You think you've won? Wade's voice was tight. I've got lawyers. I'll appeal. I'll sue. You'll do what you have to do, Cal said quietly. Just like I did. He walked away. Behind him, he heard Diane's voice, high and strained. Wade, what happens now? You said, you promised. 2 weeks later, the courthouse auction room was even more packed. Wade's flagship property, 800 acres bordering Cal's ranch, was being sold to satisfy creditor claims. The whole county had come to watch. Cal stood in back with Frank. He wore his good suit, the one from his mother's funeral. It didn't smell like mothballs anymore. Spring air had cleaned it. The auctioneer started at $2 million. Wade, sitting near the front, raised his card immediately. Confident, like he had money nobody knew about. $2,100,000, a voice called from the back. Heads turned. Cal had his card raised. Wade's face showed confusion, then understanding, then fear. The bidding went back and forth. 2.5, 3, 3.2. Wade was sweating now. His card shook when he raised it. $5 million, Cal said. His voice carried through the room, clear and strong. Silence. The auctioneer looked at Wade. Sir? Wade looked at Diane beside him. She was crying. She shook her head. No, Wade said, broken. I'm out. The gavel came down. Sold to Cal Brennan for $5 million. Cal walked to the front. The crowd parted. He stood before the room and every eye was on him. Wade, he said, you tried to steal my mother's legacy through paperwork and grief. You married my ex-wife thinking I was finished. He held up the leather patent tube. But here's what you never understood. Land isn't about money, it's about stewardship. He turned to face the crowd. This property I just bought? I'm donating it to the Montana Land Trust. Conservation easement, no development, ever. Water stays in Copper Creek. He looked back at Wade, just like Mom would have wanted. Wade stood, walked out. Diane followed. Nobody tried to stop them. Frank was smiling when Cal sat back down. Your mother, Frank said quietly, would be very proud. Wade and Diane left Copper Ridge 3 days after the auction. Nobody saw them go. Just noticed one morning that Wade's office was empty, his Mercedes gone from the parking space where it usually sat. The bank foreclosed on 2 of his properties. The rest sold to cover debts. By June, there was no trace of Wade Pritchard development in the county records except liens and unpaid bills. Diane filed for divorce from Wade in Arizona. T-Bone heard it through his sister, who heard it from someone at the title company where Diane found work. Cal didn't ask for details. Some endings don't need explaining. Late May, Cal established the Brennan Agricultural Heritage Foundation. Frank helped with the paperwork. The foundation would manage his mother's 18 properties, rent them to young ranchers at fair rates, maintain conservation easements, and provide grants to family farms facing predatory development pressure. Your mother spent 30 years building this quietly, Frank said, signing the incorporation documents in his office. Now you get to steward it publicly. That's the difference between hiding wealth and using it well. T-Bone came into the ranch office one morning in early June. Wildflowers were blooming across the pastures, purple lupine and yellow arrowleaf balsam root. The smell of growing things filled the air. Boss, we need to talk about my role here, T-Bone said. Cal looked up from the books. What about it? I've been foreman 30 years. You're running a bigger operation now. Foundation work, multiple properties. You need a ranch manager. Someone with ownership stake. Skin in the game. Cal closed the ledger. You suggesting someone? T-Bone's weathered face cracked into a smile. I'm suggesting me, if you'll have me. 10% partnership, Cal said. Full ownership stake. We draw up papers this week. T-Bone's eyes went wet. He looked away quickly, cleared his throat. Boss, Cal, I don't know what to say. Say yes, then get back to work. Those cattle don't manage themselves. They shook hands. A real handshake. The kind that meant something. The equipment dealership was hemorrhaging when Cal took over the books. Wade's unpaid account had left a hole they couldn't fill. 3 employees had already found other work. Cal called a meeting. All 12 remaining employees gathered in the shop. The smell of grease and metal shavings was thick. A radio played low in the background. Here's where we stand, Cal said. Wade Pritchard owes us $47,000. He's never paying it. We can either close the doors, or we can try something different. He handed out folders. Inside was a proposal for a worker-owned cooperative. Every employee would own shares. Profits would be distributed quarterly. Decisions would be made by vote. I'm funding the transition, Cal said, covering the shortfall, restructuring the loans. After that, it's yours. You build it, you own it, you profit from it. The shop foreman, a man named Dave Hoskins, who'd worked there 23 years, spoke up. Why would you do that? Because my mother believed people should own their own labor, and because Wade tried to destroy this business to hurt me, I won't let him take your livelihoods in the process. The vote was unanimous. In July, T-Bone got a letter. His daughter Emily had been accepted to veterinary school at Montana State. Full scholarship, 4 years, tuition and housing covered. He brought the letter to Cal's office, confused and elated. Says here, it's the Margaret Mitchell Memorial Scholarship for rural veterinary students. Cal, did you know about this? Cal looked at the letter. My mother established several scholarships before she died. Frank's been administering them. But Emily, she applied 2 months ago. This came through fast. Good students get recognized fast. T-Bone stared at him. Understanding dawned slow. You did this. The foundation did this. Emily earned it. Cal, your daughter wants to be a large animal vet. Come back and serve rural communities. That's exactly what the scholarship was designed for. Cal handed back the letter. Tell her congratulations. And tell her Doc Martha's looking for an intern next summer if she's interested. T-Bone left without speaking. But Cal saw him later that afternoon, sitting on a fence rail by himself, holding that letter like it might disappear if he let go. August brought a different kind of letter, forwarded by Frank from the foundation office. Dear Mr. Brennan, my name is Sarah Chen. I run the Copper Ridge Literacy Program. For 5 years, your mother donated to our work with immigrant families. She never asked for recognition, never visited, never requested reports. She just believed in what we were doing. When she died, I cried for a week. She changed my life and the lives of thousands of kids. I wanted you to know that we're naming our new mobile library unit after her, the Margaret Rose Brennan Learning Center on Wheels. It will serve 3 counties. Your mother saw people others ignored. She invested in hope when it was cheaper to invest in cynicism. Thank you for continuing her work. Cal read the letter 3 times. Then he drove to the cemetery. The wildflowers were in full bloom now. The grass was thick and green. Copper Creek ran full, the sound of it a constant presence. Irrigation pipes hummed across the valley. Life everywhere. Cal knelt at his mother's grave. The granite was warm from the sun. He placed the leather patent tube against the headstone. I understand now, Mom, he said quietly. A meadowlark answered from the cottonwoods. It was never about the money. It was about knowing who to trust with water, with land, with legacy. He touched the warm stone. Wade's gone. Diane's gone. They showed exactly who they were when they thought I had nothing. He smiled slightly. You were right. You're always right. Even now. The wind carried the smell of grass and flowers and water. Somewhere in the distance, cattle called. T-Bone's truck rumbled past on the county road, work continuing, life continuing. The foundation's running, T-Bone's partnered, the dealership's going to make it. Emily's going to vet school. Cal stood, his knees protesting slightly. 63 years of ranch work. I'm doing what you asked, building something meaningful, helping people. He picked up the patent tube, started walking back to his truck, then stopped, turned back one more time. And Mom, tomorrow morning, 4:30, I'll be checking cattle. Just like always, just like you taught me. The next morning, Cal woke in darkness. 4:15, the habit was too deep to break. Didn't want to break it. He made coffee in the quiet kitchen. The house didn't feel empty anymore, just peaceful. Outside, the temperature was 60 degrees. The stars were fading. East was starting to gray. He climbed into his truck, the same old Ford, though it ran better now with proper maintenance, and drove the fence line. The cattle were scattered across the pasture, dark shapes in the pre-dawn. Their breath no longer made vapor in the air. Spring had become summer. The grass was knee-high. He counted by sections like he always had, checked water tanks, looked for anything down or distressed, found everything as it should be. When he got back, the sun was rising. Golden light across the valley. Copper Creek caught it and threw it back. The water sang over stones, heading downstream to the other ranches, to the other families who'd shared it for generations. T-Bone's truck pulled up. He got out, coffee in hand, ready for the day's work. Morning, boss. Morning, T. They stood together watching the sun climb. 2 men with dirt under their fingernails and purpose in their hearts. Good day for it, T-Bone said. Cal smiled. Every day's good for it. They walked toward the barn. Behind them, the creek flowed. Above them, a meadowlark sang its complicated joy. And all around, the land that had been Margaret Rose Brennan's secret empire lay green and growing in the morning light. Not empire anymore. Legacy. Now, some folks might say Cal Brennan should have made Wade Pritchard suffer more. Ruined him completely. taken everything and ground it into dust. There's a satisfaction in that kind of revenge, the Old Testament kind that burns hot and complete. But if you've ever ranched through a Montana winter, you know something about patience, about waiting for spring, about trusting that the land will come back if you treat it right. Cal understood what Wade never did, that you don't own land. You borrow it for a while, care for it, and pass it on. Same with water, same with legacy. His mother spent 40 years building something in secret, not because she was ashamed of wealth, but because she wanted her son to learn what mattered before money complicated the lesson. She was testing him, not cruelly, but carefully, the way you test ice before crossing a frozen creek. She needed to know he'd choose right when choosing wrong would be easier. Wade Pritchard measured everything in dollars and deals. He saw Cal's grief as opportunity and friendship as currency. That tells you what you need to know about a man. Diane, too, she loved security more than she ever loved Cal. You can't change people like that. You can only decide whether to let them change you. Cal chose dignity, chose to fight clean, chose to let Wade's own desperation destroy him, rather than getting his hands dirty with revenge. There's wisdom in that, the kind his father never learned, bless him, the kind that keeps a man whole, even when everything around him is breaking. Come late August, if you drive through Copper Ridge, you'll see Cal's ranch looking about the same as it always did. Old house, metal barn, cattle grazing, nothing fancy, but Copper Creek runs clear and full, feeding 9 ranches downstream. T-Bone's daughter is studying to be a vet. The equipment dealership pays profit sharing to 12 families. And somewhere in Arizona, Wade Pritchard is learning what it means to start over with nothing but the man he became. Water flows where it needs to. So does truth. You can dam it up for a while, redirect it, try to sell it to the highest bidder. But spring always comes. The ice always melts. And what you built on lies washes away, while what you built on bedrock stands. Cal learned that from his mother. Now he tends her legacy the way she tended it, quietly, carefully, knowing that the measure of wealth isn't what you have but what you do with it. Some men measure success in dollars. Cal Brennan measures it in springs, in calves born healthy, in creeks running full, in young people getting scholarships, and old ranchers keeping their land and water flowing where it's always flowed. He's seen 63 springs now, each one teaching him what the last one started. That betrayal reveals character, both the betrayers and the betrayeds. That patience is stronger than rage. That the best revenge is becoming the man your enemies can never be. And that sometimes when you lose everything, you find out what you're really made of. Cal found out he was made of the same stuff as his mother. The stuff that lasts, the stuff that matters, the stuff that grows.